Hey everyone, what's up? It's Sarah and welcome back to my channel. In this video today, I wanted to talk about the Snowdens from Seeking Sister Wife. Some new developments have been happening online. Recently, there has been a GoFundMe that has been circulating for Christeline and her children. And basically, it's to help them get by while Christeline gets her affairs in order to return to South Africa. So a couple things. One, that does confirm that she is still in the United States. They go so far as to say in the GoFundMe that she is essentially in hiding, which that is pretty serious. So there's several things I just wanted to talk about that I had thoughts about regarding what is going on with the Snowdens, especially because on last week's episode of Seeking Sister Wife, they teased that we are going to see Dimitri approach Ashley about legally marrying Christeline. So this is all kind of coming to a head at the same time. First, let's talk about the fact that we're still speculating as to what visa Christeline is actually here on. Is she here on a tourist visa or is she here on a K1 visa? Well, being that this GoFundMe, if we're gonna take everything in good faith and believe everything that's coming out of, Christeline, Ari, Vanessa, Taylor, they've all corroborated the same story and shared similar experiences with the Snowdens. Seems pretty credible to me. So if we're going based off of we believe this story, and we believe what is being stated in the GoFundMe, I tend to believe that Christeline did in fact come over on a tourist visa, and the protections and the penalties that one might face as a sponsor if she was on a K1 visa is actually not in place for Dimitri. So let's just jump right into it. First, let's talk about the GoFundMe that was started by Ari. It does list the beneficiary as Vanessa, and it also has been shared by Taylor. So Vanessa and Taylor we have seen featured on the show Seeking Sister Wife. Initially, Vanessa was quiet, silent about her experience with the Snowdens. Many have speculated and reported that these women coming into this family actually signed NDAs with the couple in addition to signing NDAs with the network. So they really are not allowed to speak out against what is going on. So let's just take a look at what the GoFundMe says. So it says, this is Ari speaking, who was a sister wife prior to the Snowdens appearing on the show. She has done several interviews now. She's appeared on a podcast, on some YouTube channels, giving her side of the story, which is very similar to what Christeline has reported in her police report. So she writes, I've recently become acquainted with this beautiful soul and she could really use our help. Christeline Peterson and her 2 daughters are in dire need of clothing and other essentials and supplies as they have few possessions with them where they are at. After having endured severe DV at the hands of her husband, she is now in hiding and fears for her life. I know money is tight for so many during this time, but if we each chip in a little, it will make a huge difference. 100% of the funds raised minus GoFundMe's fees will go towards getting Christeline back on her feet and stabilized here in the States until she can transition back home to South Africa. Any amount helps. Thank you and God bless. Disclaimer, per Chrissy's request, until Chrissy is able to successfully create her own account, Vanessa Cobbs is named the beneficiary of her account, but Chrissy has full access to the funds and all proceeds go to her. So if she is in fact here on a tourist visa, which it looks like that is the case, and she's not here on a K1 visa, so if they got married while she was here on a tourist visa, I have not found anywhere where it would require Dimitri to file the traditional affidavit of support that you would have to if you were bringing over a foreign fiance on a traditional K-1 visa. Now, the affidavit of support is really key, and we've seen that brought up on the show 90 Day Fiance a lot. We saw Colt revoke his. I think Molly revoked hers. I'm not sure if Ashley did for Jay. But we've seen it happen many times where just because you get divorced, though, doesn't mean that you're off the hook. So let's take a look at what the immigration website says. So the responsibilities of a sponsor. When you sign the affidavit of support, you accept legal responsibility for financially supporting the sponsored immigrant, generally until they become U.S. citizens or are credited with 40 quarters of work, which is 10 years. Your obligation as a sponsor also ends if you or the individual sponsored dies or if the individual sponsored ceases to be a lawful permanent resident and departs the United States. Note, divorce does not end the sponsorship obligation. If an immigrant you sponsored receives any means-tested public benefits, you are responsible for repaying the cost of those benefits to the agency that provided them. If you do not repay the debt, the agency or the immigrant can sue you in court and get the money owed. Any joint sponsors and household members who allowed the sponsor to combine their income with the sponsor's income to meet the minimum income requirements are also legally responsible for financially supporting the sponsored immigrant. In fact, any joint sponsor and household member is jointly or severally liable with the petitioning sponsor, meaning that the joint sponsor and household member are independently liable for the full extent of the reimbursement obligations and can be sued in court or can be asked to pay back the money owed, even if the petitioning sponsor is not sued or asked for the money. That's why we saw, like, with Nicole of Nicole and Asin, her family did not want to co-sponsor her because they didn't want to be on the hook. So that is very telling that Dimitri is not financially, legally responsible for her the way that, like, Colt or Danielle or what we see other couples from 90 Day Fiance, when they're brought over on a traditional K-1 visa, have to back them for up to 10 years. I believe I talked about this in my last video, but if in fact Dimitri and Christeline, which it looks more and more like this is the case, that they married while she was here on a tourist visa, they were going to have an uphill legal battle ahead of them anyways, because while their marriage is valid, her coming over on a tourist visa and then getting married does constitute immigration fraud, because the tourist visa is a non-resident visa. So the idea or the intention when issuing a tourist visa is that at the end of the visa, that person is going to return to their home country. So if she got married here, they would have to file that adjustment of status, which is what any couple doing a K-1 visa would have to do once they got married anyways. But they would run into, or there's a high likelihood they would run into a legal battle because of the kind of circumvention that they try to do to get around the traditional process. Another important thing to point out is that we don't know Christeline's financial situation in South Africa or what kind of assets she has to her name here. I do believe that the Snowdens did financially foot the bill for her trips and bringing her and her children over. When she was living with them, it looks like all accommodations were paid for by the Snowdens and, you know, the family communal income. So she really has no resources. If in fact she did flee this extremely toxic, violent environment, and if she's here waiting to see her court case through, her divorce through, she really is in dire straits because she can't turn to traditional sources for help. It does appear that her intention is to go home to South Africa, that she, it's stated in the GoFundMe And it does not appear that her intention was to come to the United States by any means necessary. I will be linking the GoFundMe in the description of this video so that if you do feel so inclined to support Christeline and her daughters. I did a cursory search of what flights from LAX to South Africa would be, and the least expensive flights I could find were still over $1,000. So it is a great financial undertaking to even fly home, let alone maybe rent an apartment for a few months. I think the goal is $10,000 on the GoFundMe, so it's not this astronomical amount of money that they're asking for. I do find it very interesting that the Snowden, Dimitri and Ashley anyways, have been quiet, completely silent on social media regarding this. And if it is in fact true that they did require Vanessa to sign an NDA, probably Taylor and Christeline to sign NDAs as well, this has to be so embarrassing for them. And then to see this marriage, well, the marriage or the relationship anyways with Taylor crumble on national television has to be a huge embarrassment. And I'm just curious if they're going to try to spin this in a type of way to make it seem like it's always the women that don't connect with the family and that the problem isn't in fact them. So anyways, you guys, let me know what you think. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to my channel, follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Reality Squad, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Take care. Much love. Bye-bye.